Hello, I'm Julie Espinoza. I am with Rev Up Texas, and this is the Use Your Power Show. Rev Up Texas stands for Register, Educate, and Vote. Use Your Power. This show is a collaboration of nonprofit, nonpartisan organizations that want to help increase the power of the disability vote. And today we are welcoming Christopher Stanford, who is the legislative and advocacy point of contact person with the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Administration. I'm self-describing myself as a older, middle-aged female with brown hair, with a white wall behind me and an orange picture. And I'm going to let Christopher self-describe himself and then tell us a little bit about the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association. Christopher?
Yes, my name is Christopher Stanford, and I am a 66-year-old male who happens to use a wheelchair. I've been using a wheelchair for 33 years, so I'm quite knowledgeable in some of the accessibility issues that arise when people have a challenge in their life. I've been appointed the legislative advocacy individual for the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association, which is a very broad type of term because I'm not really a board member. I gather information for the chapter and I present it at the different meetings.
So there is, you all are part of a national organization?
That is correct. The Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association is a chapter of the national organization, the Paralyzed Veterans of America. The Paralyzed Veterans of America was established back in 1946, just after the war, when a number of veterans with severe disabilities, including paralysis, recognized a need for an advocacy group to enhance their lives. And the Paralyzed Veterans of America has been around all that time. And it has been, I guess, a key element in initiating some of the policies. For example, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the PVA National was very forceful in getting that accomplished. And then aspects of the getting planes to modify themselves, or at least partially modify some of the plane entry, exit, and aisle chairs. That was done by the Paralyzed Veterans of America. They have a Washington-based chapter, or not chapter, excuse me, organization, and they have lawyers and architects, and they are funded through a number of donations to basically lobby congressional legislators to implement certain things that they believe are necessary for the paralyzed veterans.
So obviously you're with the Texas Paralyzed Veterans, so
Correct.
There are state chapters?
Yes, the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association is a chapter of the national organization. It was established, I believe, back in 72, thereabouts. And there's another chapter in Dallas, Lone Star, which is which handles most of the veterans in the region. So we're somewhat regionally based. So the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association is based out of Houston, but we have satellites in Austin, San Antonio, Corpus, and Houston. And
so tell me about membership. So those are a lot of big cities in Texas. So tell me about how you attract members, who can join, what type programs you offer that fit in with your mission.
Well, I guess I would say that the mission is primarily focused on veterans with spinal cord injury or disease that would render similar situations. For example, ALS and MS individuals are full members, can be full members of the Paralyzed Veterans of America.
But they must be veterans, correct?
Yes, that's actually part of that. it's in the name. And there is some dispute occasionally whether a person qualifies to become a full member. And you can be a member, not a full member, but you can be associated with our organization and not have, I forget the term, but you can be not a voting member, but you can associate with our organization. But in order to be a full member, yes, you must have been a veteran, and you have to have a certain disability situation.
So you guys do a lot of important work, as you just talked about, going all the way back to the ADA. Tell me, what are the advocacy issues that the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association is working on? And of course, we're all about the power of the vote. Any particular that are important to voting issues, but that's a mouthful. So
yes, it is.
Let
me tell you, well, I actually contacted my head person at the chapter level, and pretty much we follow along with what the national organization, the parent organization, is doing. So the national organization is focused on a lot of legislative activities, and they run the gamut from establishing better care in the veterans hospitals, improving enhancing the accessibility in those hospitals for people with severe disabilities, getting better funding for nurses and doctors. Some of the VA centers are located in high cost areas, and there's a differential in cost of living, and we recognize that. And to attract good people, sometimes you have to pay a little bit more. These are some legislative activities. We focused on, let's say, veterans who have died. There's issues of benefits for the families. There are benefits for getting homes adapted. For example, if you use a wheelchair, you recognize that, yeah, it's pretty challenging to move around, get in the kitchen, the bathroom. The PVA National has been very encouraging in getting appropriations specifically for modification of dwelling structures for the veterans to enhance their lives. We're also looking at, as I said before, transportation issues, making accommodations for vehicles, buses, trains, planes, and then accessibility in hotels, motels. I mean, getting accommodations changed, enhanced. There are a lot of problems as we recognize. Some of these laws were established 30 years ago with the ADA, but yet retrofits are expensive and not always timely. So there are adjustments, enhancements that can be made to existing laws. As an example, accommodating air travel. I thought 30 years ago, wow, they passed the laws and it's going to make it easier to travel. Well, lots of luck. It's still challenging. A lot of people who travel on air carriers recognize that their wheelchair, after they disembark, their wheelchairs are shambles. So the Paralyzed Veterans of America is trying to pass added laws, or at least supplements to the law, to make sure that airlines accommodate these transportation modes that we require. I mean, without my wheelchair, I just can't get around.
That's so many important successes PVA has had. Can you let our listeners know, does the Paralyzed Veterans Association offer assistance to veterans who are experiencing problems with the Veteran Administration?
That's also a good question. The parent organization to the Texas Paralyzed Veterans Association, the PVA, has about 70 positions of national service officers. And these persons are paid personnel, and they inhabit, let's say, the different various hospitals in the VA system, the Veterans Administration hospital system. So there are 70 national service officers of the Paralyzed Veterans Association that are in various and different hospitals in the US. These persons act as points of contact for issues that veterans have need to ask. Let's say I go to a VA hospital, I'm trying to get a wheelchair modification, and the VA's give me a bunch of flack that they don't have that's not the chair or some issue. I can go to the National Service Officer and they will aggressively pursue an issue for me.
Can you think of any important successes you guys have contributed to paralyzed veterans being able to vote?
Well, I would say the long and short of that would be voting. Let's put it this way: voting is a right for everyone, and I would say that accommodating buildings for accessibility is very important. I haven't been involved with outright getting out the vote among veterans. We're very nonpartisan. I don't want to step on any toes. I think the focus has always been on policies, and I have not really been involved with voting specifically as part of our organization's platform or a list of things to.
But I would think that your veterans surely, I mean, they have thought the importance of voting.
Oh yes,
is very
there's no
important to
doubt.
them.
We're all very
Yes.
patriotic in that sense, but that would be on the local level. I don't think that's something that dealt with necessarily at the national level. This could be state by state,
The
or
local chapter.
county by
Mhm.
county, and the chapter could address that. That may be a potential issue if veterans can't get to the polls. That's very significant, and of course that would be addressed.
And do you work with other veteran groups on issues?
Well, right now, I'm not working with any other veterans. For example, the Disabled Veterans of America, the DVA. There are other organizations that I have not specifically worked with. I have a very small company, and I make wheelchair accessories, and some are for athletics, and some are just for helping mobilize devices. For example, your phone or this iPad, which is holding out. I've worked with other organizations that bought some stuff from me, but no, as part of my official role as an advocacy, I have not worked with
Okay.
another veteran organization.
Have you worked with non-veteran groups, other groups, period?
I haven't crossed the line. However, that seems to be a possibility. This position that I have is very open, and I'm very open to the possibility of working with other organizations to enhance the lives of all of us. So if we have a little clout that we could utilize effectively and address a wrong, I think that would be more than acceptable. That would be highly encouraged. I think it would be a great opportunity to expand this particular role that I have, which is somewhat ill-defined, and work with other organizations locally, other disability organizations, and use our force together to accomplish some legislative advocacy for the benefit of all.
Definitely can use Rev Up Texas in that collaboration.
I would appreciate that.
And also, how do you plan to get your people involved, more engaged in voting issues? Or in
Well,
voting in general?
I think what I could do is bring up policies that are being voted upon in the state of Texas. Let's focus on Texas. Things that would affect Texans. And when these issues come up, whether at the state level or let's say the city level, like there's propositions in Austin that affect us, I could bring up at the meeting these policies, and then people could vote according to their preference.
Well, I encourage you to share this show with the Paralyzed Veterans of America. And everybody watching, remember to like, subscribe. You can go to our link to find out how you can be more engaged in voting issues and involved. And of course, we're always welcoming donations. So thank you, Chris. We appreciate you joining our show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Turn up the your friend.